Good evening, folks. Ron Motta here, welcoming you to Activate Worcester. And I've got my famous short sleeve shirt on, available through Frank Rocco at a reasonable price. But these are being worn, these threads are being worn because it's literally the last show we're doing this summer. Believe it or not, huh? From now on, it's straight downhill, so we shall see. But at any rate, welcome. I'm glad you had a chance to tune us in at Channel 193. Tell your friends about it. And Activate Worcester is basically a show that we do and have been doing for the better part of 10 years to bring some light to different events that are coming up or different topics that you might not hear somewhere else. And hopefully you find it entertaining and stimulating to some extent as well. And speaking of stimulating, we've got our chief stimulator, Jay Givan, back. We flew him in from West Boylston at great cost. And then Jay is joining us again. And we could be talking about sports. No, we could be talking about music, both of which I love, neither of which are the topic tonight. So why don't you set the stage as to what the subject matter will be, Jay?
When you called a couple of weeks ago asking me to come on, and we were discussing, is there anything in the news to talk about? And we thought long and hard about this, and we realized, well, there was a coup after this dismal Joe Biden debate. Joe Biden is no longer the nominee. And then there were two assassination attempts. There was this ambush on ABC last week, 2 weeks ago, and here we are. Kamala Harris, who has received 2 less votes than Donald Trump has received attempted bullets to his head, she's not dumb. I mean, nobody that gets to this level of anything is dumb. Her problem is she can't tell anybody what she wants to do because it would be rejected. And she does lie like every politician does. You know, even Trump, I think his non-truths are more hyperbole. Whereas Kamala, it's just, you can fact check it easy enough, and she just lies.
Well, the thing of it is, the issue is what are you going to fact check? Because there are no fact checks that are put out there.
Right, so I figured we'd be the Paul Harvey show and tell everybody the rest of the story.
Nice.
As it applies to Ms. Harris.
Yeah, works for me. She's definitely the hot item. In fact, Time Magazine, which is an amazing thing, they actually put her on the cover of Time Magazine a couple of weeks ago, or a month ago, whatever it is. They didn't even take a picture. They did like a caricature of her. Like, it was like, she looked like she was an Indian. It was absolutely bizarre. But they
Well, she was 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, things tend to change with her on a regular basis. But, pardon me, it's like every time you see her in any venue where it's not totally scripted and tight, invariably she says something that really, really flips you out. And just a couple of her greatest hits, if you will. And this is not something, folks, that I'm making up. You can check it out. I'm sure you did see it, and you may have forgotten. When she was running against Biden to get the nomination 4 years ago, she was really clear about no fracking, period, end conversation. It wasn't nuanced, it was direct, and I'm proud of it. No fracking. Again, she's an environmental person, and they hate fracking, and she was right along with it, okay, which is fine. That's her approach, terrific. Now, suddenly, she said this in the debate, oh, no, fracking is good. I never said that I wasn't doing fracking. And unfortunately, when she was being queried, if you will, by the hard-hitting journalists, nobody comes back and says, excuse me, Madam Vice President, we have it on tape that this is what you said 4 years ago. They let it slide. They let all the lies slide because Trump, he's the liar. You keep hearing this. They let her get away with something like that. So that was one thing that really, to this day, sets my teeth on edge, both because of what she's saying and lying about, and secondly, the dummies that are questioning let it slide. Irrelevant. The other thing that she also said, and again, you've heard this, and if you think I'm kidding, query it, Google it, DuckGo, whatever you have to do it. Quote, the date that Biden was going to clean the evil orange man's clock, he was at the top of his game. Who said he was at the top of his game? Kamala said he was at the top of his game. He was sharp, he was reasoned, he knew what he was doing. She sits with him every day in the meetings, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And then it was like he came from the nursing home. So what happened between noon when they had lunch together and when he did his thing before the American public? And we're supposed to believe her? She grins, she lies right in your face. And if you want somebody like that earning your vote, well, your standards are a whole lot different than mine are. That's for damn sure. She's gotten to the point now that people are questioning her on certain things. And the thing that she does do, like, as Jay was saying, she's not a dummy. Remember, she's an attorney and all that sort of business. But she can memorize things. And she has canned responses to any question that comes up. Trouble is, they don't respond to the questions. This is what a lot of lawyers are trained to do: obfuscate. Don't answer the question directly. Change the subject. Tell them, look at that nice fancy light over there. Anything to divert you, and then the questioners never come back and say, well, wait a second. Now, how are you going to do this? How are you going to pay for the $25,000 for everybody buying a house, and free this, free that, everybody on Medicare, blah, 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 blah? They never query that. And even if they do, she gives one of these patented responses that have nothing to do with the question at all. And part of the thing you have to look at, who knows her best? Well, the good people of California, okay? She was out there for a long time and supposedly from Oakland, wrong, but that's another story. But when she ran against the field to get the presidential nomination 4 years ago, she finished, as I remember, in the state of California, her home turf, okay? Zero, nada. She got nothing. If that's not a clue, folks, as to who this woman really is, then we're coming from a different place. She's also somebody that, as I remember back to that, and then I'm going to shut up and turn it back over to my partner here. She was very, very clear, because she's really into the racial thing, because, you know, she wants to be the first black female president. That's fine, okay. But you got to be good, and that's where it falls off the track. But she very specifically called Joe a racist from the podium. There was no doubt. And Joe did fumble mouth. He didn't say a damn thing to correct her, and they let that slide. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is that you can't pick up a newspaper if you pick those up anymore. You can't watch TV. You can't, listen to any conversation on talk radio or whatever. And they're talking about polling results, and it's real close. Well, there's an old adage: figures lie, liars figure. And what they're telling you is two things recently. Number one is that they are over-selecting females in the vote. So if they say, it's 49, 47, who are those 49? Disproportionate number of females. It's not a cross-section, okay? And something like that is just scary to me. And what they're doing is yellow journalism. They're trying to create something here. They're trying once again to obfuscate. And unless you can drill down and find out what the composition of those voters is, or proposed voters is, the low information people will say, oh, she's really doing good, and I should consider her. No, you're wrong. They're doing everything they can, just like they did to get Biden elected 4 years ago. And I'm not even going with the abnormalities with the polling ballots and all that sort of. That's another subject for another day. But this is what you're dealing with. They had him in the bunker, period, as long as they could. They didn't want him out there because the more he talks, the deeper in trouble he gets. Same ball game with this lady. Keep her on track, and she can memorize a speech, and she did one very recently, which I thought was just special. She gave the same speech to 2 or 3 different areas and had a different inflection in each one. When she was talking to the union boys, that was one thing. And then when she was talking to some other folks, I think in Georgia, now suddenly she's a home gal. Same speech, word for word. She can memorize a speech very, very well. But the trouble is there's nothing behind the speeches. She's playing us all for suckers. And the people behind her are playing us for suckers. The borders are, oh yes, she's not, yes she is, no she wasn't, whatever. Whose ever fingerprints are on that border, okay, and she was the vice president, is the vice president. And I'm just going to say this, if the quote unquote new Americans, which they are not, but that's what they call them, if it turned out that they would be in fact voting for Republicans, the Democrats would be on the border with machine guns, their beloved AK-47s and AR-15s, shooting them to make damn sure they didn't get into this country. This is all something that's planned to come in to make the Democrats in power for the next 100 years. And these are the games that are being played, folks. Plain and simple. I'm done. Go.
What an intro. How do you follow up with that, other than let's start at the beginning? Let me skip ahead a few things and go
Please.
to, you had mentioned they're going after the women vote. I don't think it's necessarily the women vote, but the single women vote. If you do, I hate to go in this direction, but in 2019, she was on this Mindy, I can't think of her name, is that Indian
Kaling,
actress from...
Mindy Kaling.
I guess, that's it. She's doing some cooking show, Kamala comes on, this is 2019, and about 5 years ago. And so what? I mean, the typical candidate, the usual puffy, TV
Hard-hitting
appearance.
interview.
And so Mindy and Kamala are talking about Kamala's Indian roots, and she's going to be the first, not only first woman president, but first Indian president. Good. So what? I mean, nobody really cares. Now she's running as the first black. She's not technically black. I mean, she is black, but she's Jamaican Caribbean black. She's implying she's African American black. So what would cause her to go from Indian, which she is, on her mother's side, and then implying African American black, and she's black on her father's side, and her ancestors were both Irish and slave owners, but that's a whole other story. All you have to do is Google how many fill in the demographic are there in the United States. There are about 5 million Indians in the United States. There's about 41 or 42 million blacks in the United States. So there's more votes to get running as a black woman than there is an Indian woman. It's a tight race. Blacks used to vote overwhelmingly Republican before Roosevelt turned them into Democrats. Yep. Then they were 95% or so Democrat. Trump's been chipping away for 8 years. I think that's 25% of blacks are now on the side of Trump. That makes the elections, and particularly in swing states, that much closer. And that can give, all you need is one more vote than the other person, and you win. So that's why I think she's running as a black woman and not so much as an Indian woman. There's another demographic that votes overwhelmingly Democrat, and that's single women. And this is something Russia talked about for years and years.
I remember.
So if you're the Democrat Party and you know single women are voting overwhelmingly Democrat, what do you do to keep them single? Because when they get married, they naturally become more friendly to Republicans and start voting Republican. So as a group, you don't want them to get married. You need to keep them single. You keep them single, you keep them Democrat.
Under control.
Right. So what do? You try to get them to hate men. Feminism. What's a good way to hate men? Feminize men. You teach them that boys are natural-born rapists. They're this. I mean, you know the whole litany of charges. And you just, you divide the sexes. That way you keep your numbers up. I don't even think that's going to happen at this point. Because when you look at colleges, let me go to this clip. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it. And most single women tend to be younger. And of course, college kids are 18, 19, 20. But even getting up through age 24, which is basically when people in the 60s, 50s, and 40s would get married. So let's listen to Kamala. Hopefully this works.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories. And they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
Let's hear this again.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories. And they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
So I don't think many 18 to 24-year-olds want to be insulted like this. And then if the Republican Party, or Trump in this case, can explain why the three things that are most important to them, college tuition, health care, and basically an automobile, are so much more expensive than when their parents, even grandparents, went to college. It's an automobile right now, 2024, is $12,000 more expensive than the rate of inflation on an average new car in 1990. If you were to look at the average price of a home in the early 70s, nationwide, it's always more expensive in the Northeast. Just by the rate of inflation, the average home today should be about $150,000, $175,000. It's in the $450,000 range in this state. And you send them to college. I first saw this statistic in a Mark Levin book. I think it was, what was the name of it? Plunder and Deceit. I think on page 74, but I'm just guessing at that. He started talking about the cost of college. In 1963, a four-year school, full tuition, room and board, meals, everything, $1,248, $1,250. If that had increased to the rate of inflation by the 2019-2020 school year, that would be a little over $25,000. I'm sorry. This school year, by the rate of inflation, it would be just under $13,000. 5 years ago, it was a little over $25,000. So that's twice the rate of inflation. If you look at a school like Holy Cross, in 1963-64, it was about $2,400. If that had increased at the rate of inflation, this school year, Holy Cross would cost about $25,000.
Which is about 10 times as much.
Right now it's about, according to the Telegram and Gazette, it's about $83,000. Clark University.
And that's for 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year.
That's not for 4 years.
Yeah, you multiply it by 4 years, and you've just bought a house down in Florida. Clark University, where we have 2 city councilors that went to. If they went to Clark University in the mid-'70s, they would have paid about $4,700. If it had increased at the rate of inflation, they'd be paying about $30,000 this year. Instead, 5 years ago, the actual cost was over $58,000. So you got to figure it's 63 and 65 in that ballpark.
One of the things that people have said is that in a lot of cases, people go through a 4-year college, assuming that it's not a commuter school, and that they don't have mega, freebies, basketball scholarships and that. At the end of 4 years, they basically have a degree, and they've got a house payment, but no house. And that's about where it's at. And they're wondering why why people who graduate college, they're hustling for jobs. They're getting paid $35,000 or $40,000, which from my day is a lot of money, not now. And when they've got college loans in the 6 figures, and then here in Worcester, if they want to live in Worcester, live in a decent 1 bedroom, you're looking $1,800, $2,000, maybe a little bit more. And then if you're going to have a car, guys, the numbers much better than I do. But it's a frightening world that they're into right now. Absolutely frightening.
It's not their fault.
No.
So let's go back to this quote again. So if you go to a 4-year college around here, say Holy Cross, you're going to be paying $350,000 roundabout.
And those are net dollars.
Oh yeah, post-tax.
Net dollars,
yeah. So you're about $350,000 for college. Then you're going to be paying $50,000 for a car, which was the price of a house back when their parents bought it. And the house is probably 3 times more than it would be by the rate of inflation. Mm-hmm. So you got $350,000, about $500,000, $550,000, $600,000.
And how are you going to afford something? They can't even afford an apartment. That's why a lot of them,
$2,000 a month.
They're taking their fancy degrees in animal husbandry or whatever, also the interracial studies, and they're basically living in the basement at home. This is about the world that we have now deigned them to have. Thank you, inflation. Thank you, government. Government's fat hands have been on all of these things, and that's why everything has spiraled. I happened to see something the other day which is pretty fascinating. It was a documentary on Ronald Reagan, who was the Trump of his day, so to speak. And he did a little bit talking about the horror of inflation. And he was saying that at one time, before inflation, they were paying like 69 cents for eggs. Now eggs are like $1.89 or whatever it was. And he brought 4 or 5 different examples. And when you took a look at what was happening then and take a look at what people are paying now relative to what they're making, I mean, people are hitting their 401ks. They're hitting their lines of credit just for daily expenses. Something, as they say, the old adage is rotten in Denmark. Folks, there's something rotten right here, and we don't live in Denmark. And if you continue to vote the same group of people in, this is what you're going to continue. It'll be much, much worse. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the last point, I forgot to bring this quote with me, but the bureaucracy in college has just, grown tremendously over the last 60 years. Yeah. And I think it's about 40 or 50% of the total college faculty. So these kids, or parents, whoever's paying the bill, they're not paying for a college education. They're paying for a bureaucracy that's putting them hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
It's true.
So when we have, Kamala Harris, she's along with Biden. I don't think she said anything to the contrary. She wants to eliminate student debt. It's how, I mean, you take that by the number of college students. There's not enough money. I mean, we're already 33
How
trillion
about
in debt.
Medicare for all? It's nice. Where does this come from? Remember this, folks. Politicians don't take money out of their own pocket to make these things happen. They're taking the damn money out of your pocket and out of my pocket. And of course, there's always an interesting surcharge, because anything they put in, they load the bureaucracy. He's talking about, the cost of education. Here in the city of Worcester, roughly half the people that are on the payroll for the schools are not teachers. It's support people. Huh? And, ESL and all the other things that you have to have. This is why your taxes are through the roof, and they're going to do nothing more than escalate, and the product is even worse that they're producing. If it was a pen, you wouldn't want the damn thing because it's made out of crap and it doesn't write, and it's twice the price that it used to be. This is the world that we're in right now.
So once again,
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories. And they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
And that's what she's banking on, that they will make that bad decision and vote for her. That's about, if God forbid it turns out that way, that'll be the answer to the whole thing. It's just, by the way, they cook the books. The other day it came out that they've inflated the number of jobs by well over 1 million that were created. And they're phony, half of them to begin with. You could just go on and on and on. It's like we're making this stuff up. I wish we were. Then you could throw us the hell off the TV and let it be done. But that's why we have this show, to kind of bring some of these points out. And I hope you're aware of these things. You don't rely on us to give it to you. And get it from different sources out there, not just the alphabet networks who are completely in the pocket of the big system. Anyway, we're going to be ending up real quick. So, Jay, thank you for all the amazing work that you did on this. And there's a lot more, folks, believe me. And thank you for joining us again and for bringing to light a lot of the darkness that we're being forced to live with. So thank you again, all the way in from West Boylston, from the wilds of West Boylston. Folks, thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. And I hope it is in some way enlightening for you, as it is for me listening to Jay. So thank you again for watching. Hopefully we'll see you again next week. Good night.